So those of you who have heard some of the sessions we've had earlier, yesterday I spoke with Gillian Tans, the CEO of Booking.com, and on Wednesday on this stage, Oliver Heckman, the head of Google, and we've learned a lot of insights. And to complete what I wanted to share with you, we also have another leader that I'm looking forward to speaking. Unlike some of the other ones, our next speaker worked for TUI for over a decade. So when he joined the online travel marketplace, he brought a lot of the traditional or legacy experience to help grow that business tremendously in Central Europe. And one thing we'll get into, you'll see he's a strong advocate of the company's test and learn culture, which is very important to growth. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Andreas Now, the Expedia's Managing Director for Central Europe. Welcome.
Thank you very much for
Please. Was it unusual when you left the TUI culture and came into the Expedia culture?
You know, when I left TUI, it was a Friday, and actually my last meeting was with Expedia. We were providing Expedia with car rental solutions that we still use, and I started on Monday, and I thought, actually, I don't understand anything about travel. The acronyms being used, the technology terms being used are entirely different.
Yeah,
so it really took
amazing.
months.
I started Focusrite in 1994, pre-web, right? And I was just amazed. But one thing about the travel vertical, when the internet started, none of the intermediaries in travel embraced online. So every single big player today was a startup.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
I think when I look back at the time then for TUI, and it applies still today to other major companies, online was very much treated as a digital lab somewhere in the company that maybe sits on the ground floor, and is not integral to management decisions, really. And obviously that changed at a lot of these companies, but the challenge is then to compete with digital natives.
And I think it's companies wait too long until the new trend is of a certain size, until it's worth it or it's worth the investment. And always, if you take that approach, it's too late to ever catch up. So. I did this with Gillian yesterday. It's helpful to the audience to understand this very large company, Expedia Inc., that was spun off from Microsoft many, many years ago. And now, so there's lots of brands, right? So there's Expedia, Hotels.com. Can you rattle off some of the other ones?
Well, everyone.
Do you know them all?
Everyone who watches TV knows, we are majority holder in Trivago.
Still after the IPO?
Still after the IPO.
Yeah.
Car Del Mar here in Germany is a car rental broker that we have as an example. We have HomeAway, which is a fantastic product. Hotels.com, Bittner. We've just shut, actually. And then, a couple of local names like eBookers, Orbitz, Travelocity, and the rest. Yeah.
And also on the corporate side, Egencia.
Egencia.
Right. So so you're running the many Expedia.com brands.
Exactly.
And how many different Expedia brands?
Well, actually, the way we're organized is I'm running one brand across the region here, right?
Okay.
So the way we work is we have platform teams, I would say. It's probably not the best word, but for example, our lodging part of our business, who basically look after the hotel relationships.
Yeah.
They provide contracts, let's say, for all of the brands. And then we have the brand teams who are really brutally competitive even to each other.
Customer facing for customers.
Exactly.
And then behind the scenes, you're all integrated.
On a lot of technology, but certainly not on everything. So we have to be very careful not to slow down the different brands and really take into account differences as well. So we're only integrated where it makes sense.
So it's interesting. Priceline Group, like Agoda, say, for example, in Southeast Asia, headquartered in Bangkok, they compete with Booking.com, but they have a completely independent team. Their own supply, their own finance, their own tech. So what do you think the pros and cons of shared services and being fiercely independent are?
So I think, you really have to think hard about it, and I think companies move from a very central model to a decentral model all the time and, constantly reorg. So there's probably no right answer, but broadly speaking, those services which make sense to scale, where you get efficiencies very quickly, are certainly, everything supplier facing, everything to do with core technology, you could argue.
Yeah.
But when it comes to innovation, you want to keep a certain local edge on the business. And then, the nuance is actually we share that with our internal competitors. So if we have a winner at Expedia, 3 weeks later, Hotels.com will get that winner and vice versa. So we do share it, but we do compete equally. So that's a trade-off.
Is there an example you could give of some bit of innovation one of the product could figure out that was so successful that it was shared across other brands?
So I'll give you an example that since we're in Germany, I'm quite proud. We've actually started a startup here within my team that looks after the automated booking of meetings, meeting rooms together with hotel rooms. We believe we're the only one who does this very effectively. And that's something we just tested. We saw there's lack of very good process in the industry today. It's a huge part of the business. And we're scaling that globally, also with the other brands, Egencia, for example. So that's something now that we've actually transferred over to our lodging side, and that's actually scaling globally. So, we sign deals like with Best Western across Europe, and then those eventually will scale globally as the system rolls out.
So you have your own product team for user experience for the Expedia brand?
Yeah, so again, we try to be sensible. We obviously have a central product team, which drives, I would say, 80%, 85% of all development. But we do leave ourselves, room to say, in Germany, something is different, and we have to really go deep into that and understand it. Yeah.
So you and I have done this for a very, very long time, but I wanted for those that aren't so familiar in the audience, and you worked for TUI for many years, so in more traditional travel, product is called supply, right?
True.
So can you explain why product is not supply, and in your own words, what is the correct definition of product?
Yeah, again, that's something where definitions changed very dramatically when I joined Expedia, but fundamentally for us, we're a technology team who happens to do travel. So I'm one of the very few travel people I would consider from a background within our company, and I think it's a good thing because we get the best talent from any industry. It doesn't matter where they're from, and so I think that's an important nuance, that we consider let's say the website, web development is our core product.
So how customers interact with your digital brand.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
to speak. Hotels is a huge aspect of these businesses, both in terms of volume and margin. I was just in India last week at the Focusrite India conference, stayed at a beautiful Oberoi property, and they had these little cardboard sandwich signs saying book direct with Oberoi, book direct with Oberoi. Then Marriott.com, if we put up the homepage still, they've trademarked, I think it pays to book direct. Hilton had that television campaign, I don't know if it's still running, stop clicking around. It's awkward. These are all your partners. So what's going on here, really?
So I think, this morning I checked out of my beautiful 5-star hotel here in Berlin, and the lady at the front desk, I won't name the hotel, but she said, next time if you book direct, I'll give you 10% off. And I
Did you hand her your business card?
I said, by the way,
I run Expedia for all of Europe.
So we'll take up this conversation another time. But no, the point is, in any industry, and it's not only in travel, there's always a healthy friction between, those who distribute and those who are, your supply partners. And I think, the pendulum always goes one direction and another direction. And, if we look at airlines, it's the same discussion. If we look at the Lufthansa situation in Europe, as an example. So I think, the underlying value that we provide, we try to make very clear to our hotels, and the value is very broad. We do believe we bring, more international demand than any given hotel chain can ever get themselves at a given time. We provide customers the choice. We provide packaging options which come with much lower cancellation rates than hotels get directly. So we have an endless list of benefits that we feel we provide our hotel partners.
But if I go into a grocery store and buy a bag of Starbucks coffee, they don't text me, or there's not a little sign there that says, next time go into the Starbucks store. That would seem so weird. Isn't it a little excessive in travel compared to other Retail category?
I think it's
or you're
definitely,
used to it?
we're used to it. I think it's definitely excessive at times. Some hotel chains, in our view, have gone the wrong way, and I think some are backtracking. Equally, you could say, companies like Expedia have also made mistakes in the past, especially here in Europe. And I think, that healthy discussion with hotels, how do we provide value? That's something that's going to continue. We see our tools more and more as software as a solution. So we really try to understand how a hotel operates and provide those solutions just like we provide our customers. So we have the same product development aspect with the hotel software now that we have with the B2C side.
Do you think Hilton and Marriott, et cetera, would say the campaigns are working?
I'll leave that for them to comment. I'd say, what you would say is that our strategy is working if you look at Expedia's figures. So I would
if you look at Expedia's market cap, Priceline's market cap, it's hard to believe it's working. Hard to believe it's working.
Yeah, again, I'll let the management team there comment on that. Our job is really just to provide arguments, and really understand what problems do they actually have with us, and let's figure them out together as a team.
You talked about pendulum swinging. Another great example of that is the commission or agency model versus the merchant model. I remember years ago, I introduced Travelscape to Rich Barton at Expedia, and I think that kicked off the merchant model phenomenon that caused Expedia to get so big. And then, of course, Booking.com appeared on the marketplace and reintroduced the original commission agency model. So where is that pendulum now in Expedia with all your different brands and businesses?
So, it is interesting because, again, Expedia went through a lot of learnings with this. And the number one learning was, the world is not the same. So Europe is not like the US. The chain penetration in Europe is completely different. Regional territories in Germany require entirely different strategy. I think the main model that we actually are laying on right now is what we call Expedia Traveler Preference. So it's actually to offer both options to the customer in terms of pay now or pay later. And by doing that, we enable these hotels to be sold on a package path, but we also provide our own higher converting options to our customers there. So that's probably where most of our focus is going.
And you mentioned packaging. Packaging is a lot easier to present to customers if the merchant model is used, correct?
Well, it just also allows us to do pricing at scale, right? So we do about 67,000 price changes now a day, based on algorithms at Expedia, and we're always learning how to improve on that. And one of our big strategies this year is actually to go away from a very traditional view of packaging, which is fundamentally built by the industry and by technology available, to a more of a consumer-facing way of packaging. So,
what would be an example of the difference now?
So the difference for us is today we have very clear paths, and you as a customer have to select: do I want a hotel plus flight? Or do I want, let's say, flight plus car?
You have to decide that in advance.
At the spot. So we're going away from that more to, I would call it an Amazon-like, even though not quite the same thing, shopping basket experience, maybe in stage one, where our vision is very much the more you combine with Expedia, and it doesn't have to be in that session, the more you save. And we want to guarantee those savings. So we're working on a model internally to allow us to build upon that and test.
So how do you handle this? Because I know a lot of industry players struggle with this. If there's a 500 euro plane ticket and a 200 euro hotel, Expedia can sell that combination for less than 700 euros, but only when it's together. So if it comes later in the path, what have you innovated to make that work?
So basically, there's a couple of aspects here. So the first one is that any product can be combined with any other product at any given time, right? So it could be within the booking experience. And previously at Expedia, each of these product lines was developed independently, so the checkout process was independent. In the future, very much we have a vision it will all be one. But we also understand the customer, wants to be flexible. So he may want to book his flight tickets right away and still think about which hotel to stay in, or if he needs a car or he needs a home away villa. And we, our intent is very much, especially on the mobile experience, to provide, price points that then ensure that he comes back to us. And we believe this gives us a strategic advantage, actually, over monoline players.
So you mentioned HomeAway. How has that acquisition enhanced the Expedia businesses?
So HomeAway is fantastic. We have up to, I believe right now, it's almost 2 million bookable vacation properties. Vacation is the wrong word. I would just say, properties. And the difference to our competitor in that space is really that most of these are specifically designed to be properties to be let out. And our plan is right now to really integrate HomeAway onto the main Expedia brand and offer those products in our normal site booking experience. And we're actually testing that. We're live already, and we're just going to ramp that up as this year progresses. So we're very excited about that, especially in Europe.
So eventually, all the HomeAway properties will be bookable through the Expedia brand.
The correct thing is bookable, which is a challenge because, as many people know, many of those properties are not instantly bookable, and there's good reasons for that today. So very much, we do have a drive to make as much as we can instantly bookable, and then within the Expedia packaging experience.
Yeah. My opening, I talked about Expedia's famous test and learn culture. That probably was a big eye opener for you when you. Can you share with the audience what that really means in terms of running a travel business, and especially if it's something they could adopt?
Yeah. So basically, I think it's something where if you take a step back, no one really knows the future, right? We're all making our great hypothesis about, mobile's dead and the next thing is coming, or, it's going to be about artificial intelligence, but no one really knows what's next. So for us, it's about small steps as well, on a day-to-day basis, and getting a culture of constant innovation so that we're flexible enough to engage with change. And it goes from the management layer downwards, so that no one in our company just makes a decision. And basically, we look at data, and we really school everyone in the company to create scientific hypothesis. And when I mean everyone, I really mean management. If you're a market manager, looking after hotel relationships, everyone has to have a scientific hypothesis. And then basically, if that's well formulated, we are totally open to providing capital to get testing in there. And we're perfectly happy if it fails because we've learned from that.
But I would believe that most people in this audience working in travel make changes to their website or their app because they had a meeting and someone said, I like this better, or I think the copy should be there, or we should replace these photographs with these photographs. What advice would you give anybody that's changing their content that way?
I would say, do this training on this. I'd recommend that. I went through it myself. We're fortunate to have, amongst the best talent in the world who can help us understand better how to formulate scientific hypothesis. Really, with solid observations on why you want to change something, and then, just trying it out. And just, the game plan for us is really how many tests can we actually do in a given period of time.
So walk us through how this works. So we'll do one simple example and maybe one more. So once upon a time, there's a button that says reserve now.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And someone says, I think it should say book now.
Mm-hmm. So
what do we do?
Basically, that's a very good one because that is exactly one that has driven millions of dollars of change to our business. Yeah. And I won't comment, obviously, on the details of that, but it's a good example because of the size. We had a solid hypothesis, actually, in this case, based on regional analysis. So we have user labs where we actually wire up real users. We have those regionally, for example, in London. And we actually work with them on different iterations of how the website could look, including words. So we have German people sitting there. We have Dutch people. And we actually, from that analysis, have tested different terminology, also using psychologists. And then based on that, picked a winner that we thought would win. And then we just tested on mass volume.
And so to you, it's so obvious. We just test it. So teach us about A/B. What does that mean? A/B testing. I got to just test it. How many in the audience, honestly, clap if your companies are aggressive at A/B testing? Okay. And be honest, clap. I can't see who you are if you really don't do or don't know what A/B testing is. No. Clap if you're here. Okay. Obviously, most people didn't answer, but I think we know it. So you say, okay, we'll go test it. How does that work?
So obviously, you need technology that allows you to do that. The main way to test is really, A/B test. So you have a certain amount of traffic going on one iteration of reserve and certain amount of traffic on another, and you pick the winner. And then you test on, and you learn from that. And, I think the notion doesn't only apply to the website. That's the key difference. It also applies to how you manage the company. It applies to how you give feedback to your employees.
Yeah.
And it also applies, for example, how we price. Our pricing is not based on opinion either. It's based on algorithms that are tested every day and optimized. Yeah.
I asked Gillian yesterday, she was interviewed last year by, I forgot the guy's name, one of the co-founders of that big Next Web. And I guess he's this big guru. And after 10 minutes, he said, but I have to say, your website is really ugly. And everyone started laughing, and she said, that's why we don't listen to opinions.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. But I do think there is an important aspect, and we're actually realizing this ourselves. When you test, like we're testing, you do kind of stay with a product that you have. And I do feel there's a slight risk that you're going to, you might have slightly a tunnel vision here. So we have the notion of our core business, which is fundamentally test and learn. But we also have bets. Bets are, let's say, where we can't test them because there's no scientific hypothesis.
Right. It was like the Sony Walkman. Every test he did, I forgot the famous chairman of...
Yeah.
Every single test he did said, don't do it.
Yet he did it.
And he won. Probably, it was the foray to MP3 and iPod.
Yeah.
So.
And even in science, most of the experiments, actually, some of the biggest innovations in the world, like penicillin, came out of, actually, it wasn't even the intent of the test.
So walk us through how at Expedia, so we've got this incremental, should it be this word or this word? Should the map be in the upper left or the bottom right? Should this button be green, oval, or red? So, okay, we got that. But what about more dramatic things where we don't really understand what's coming next with apps and artificial intelligence? How do you...
So I think, the nice benefit of Expedia is we're a fairly big company, so, we can allow ourselves to have a couple of bets every year. And our president, Aman, president of Expedia, and Dara, CEO of Expedia, very much foster this as well. So our mice examples, one...
That was one of your
one
ideas,
bet that I had. And we're all allowed, as long as the core business is fundamentally well managed, we are allowed one or two bets, let's say. And those bets obviously have to have, some reasoning behind them, obviously. But, it's something where we won't know the outcome until we do it. So, we're working with Amazon on voice right now, Amazon Echo. Do we know how that's going to look? No, because, it's really just at the beginning. But we feel it's an area we have to start learning very early.
Since you brought up Amazon and voice, I asked Oliver Heckman Wednesday, because he said that, I think he said 70% of Google searches now are from a mobile device.
Yeah.
And of the 70%, 20% are voice initiated. So I asked him, is Google a mobile first company? And he said, up until last year, Philip, I said yes, but now I say no, we're an AI first company. Does that scare you?
It just shows you how fast the world is going. I think the message I would have is we don't know what's next. I think, again, this comes back to the notion of bets versus getting the core business right. Travel agents are still proliferating in Europe, in Germany especially. Everyone 20 years ago said that it's over. Everyone's going to book online. The same now. Everyone's going to say, okay, there's something new that's coming, chatbots, and no one's going to call anyone else anymore. That's not happened yet. So I think, again, it's this notion of getting it right between experimenting in these new areas and being ready for them as a company. And we're fortunate to be big enough and have the talent to do that. But also just remembering your daily business.
Does your gut tell you, though, that AI and voice is going to be a huge impact on travel?
Without a shadow of a doubt in that one. So, with AI, it's about setting up your company very early on to understand the benefits it can bring your customers and experimenting and seeing where it lands you.
Airbnb talk about not seeing all the trends coming. They come out of nowhere, this huge category. But up until recently, they were kind of over there with this new sector that was very chaotic and challenging regulatory bodies all over the place. A lot of legacy companies were admirous, but they're not going there. And you mentioned HomeAway is different. But now, in the last, I'd say, 6 months, I just heard about Airbnb for Business, where there's a checklist of things from smoke alarms to amenities. Airbnb is getting into experiential travel with local tours and activities. Airbnb is getting into air. So all of a sudden, the company that was over there is knocking at the corporate door, the air door, the experiential door. How does that change strategy at Expedia?
I'm not sure if it does it. The first thing about Airbnb is we recognize it really opened the industry to such an extent that, for example, low-cost carriers did as well, right? It just provides travel to a new set of people, and it also expands the options of existing people, so it's a fundamentally great thing for the industry.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of how it changes our strategy, I'd say, Airbnb might be coming our direction a little bit here, but, we're going that direction as well with the HomeAway acquisition, and
What about on the experience side? Because that's a big initiative for Expedia.
Yeah, so again, Expedia has been very focused on the transaction because it's done well for us, and we are experimenting with the experience side as well. It's in early days for us, but we bought Trover, which is a photo sharing community, and actually that's a company that provides fantastic content. That's very inspirational, and we're experimenting in that area.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, you talk about the bets. So several years ago, Sam Shank, I think an ex-Expedia guy, he launched Hotel Tonight. Mm-hmm. And that really took the marketplace by surprise, and then the bigger players caught up. So what happened then that we can learn from, and where might those examples happen next, where all of a sudden out of the blue a startup really becomes significant?
It's a good question. I think with the hotels tonight type of businesses, and there were some in Europe as well. Fundamentally, an OTA like us or our main competitor can do the same thing. There's nothing in the product or the hotel relationship that says we cannot fundamentally offer the same product.
But they saw something at the time Expedia didn't see.
Perhaps,
nobody saw it.
Yeah, and now I would say probably the market has corrected that, in the sense that, yes, we've noticed we have to catch up in that space. We've done that, and now I'd say it's not a topic anymore. It's just normal that if you need a hotel tonight, you can book a hotel tonight. You can book a hotel 1 minute before midnight.
Do you think, to your other point, that companies like Hotel Tonight, Hopper, they're app-only businesses? Do you think there might be travel startups that only live inside of Amazon Echo or Google Home?
I think absolutely, and the reason for that is you can specialize, and when you specialize, you can do something really good. And there's always going to be room for that. So a company the size of Expedia, we have to stay focused on our core business, and the way we kind of go about that is we partner with startups, or we create a startup like the Mice one in Germany, which is we incubate it internally, and then we push it to a mainstream part of the company.
Or you invest in them like Alice.
Or we invest. Yes.
Yeah.
So
this, we call this travel distribution, or we're travel intermediaries, for lack of a better word. And our assets, as I always like to say, pretty much consist of servers and people. And that's about it, right? And obviously the people one is the big differentiator. How important is people and culture? Everybody talks about it, but is there a real differentiator here for Expedia?
There is, and I think everyone working at Expedia will agree with me. It's a fantastic culture, and I think the reason it's fantastic is, we take work very seriously. We work in a scientific, professional way, but we like to have fun and party as well. So, we really love each other as colleagues. We spend a lot of time outside of work with each other. People become friends for life, and I think that's a unique asset that Expedia really has fostered, and it shows, we've won twice in a row Best Place to Work in the UK, as an example. So we get these awards, and it's because, people have voted for them. So
yeah, you're not trying to win the awards.
Of course not. But I think the notion is really, you need to create a fun environment, an environment where you allow people to test, be creative, and a flat hierarchy. Dara, our CEO, has a very broad outreach to everyone, and I think there's no intimidation in our company from speaking to senior leadership.
To conclude, you used a really good expression, I think. We always need to future-proof our businesses. So to wrap up, can you explain what that means, and how do you do that? It sounds great, but how do you actually do that?
Expedia is one of the, I'd say, few e-commerce companies from the year one of the internet almost, who are still around today and doing very well, right? There's
18 years old? Trying to
20,
think.
I think, yeah, 18, 20.
When did I get rich? 94?
Yeah. And so if you think back, that's an amazing achievement, because if most companies, they fail 10 years on, and I think it comes back to the culture again. So I guess it's getting the balance right between test and learn on a day-to-day basis, but understanding where the trends are going. And if we believe artificial intelligence is going to change the industry, we better get in there very early. Or if we believe, mobile, we're lacking in some areas, we acknowledge that, we have to fix that very quickly.
And part of future-proofing acknowledges that it's better to cannibalize your own business than to let a competitor do that, right?
Absolutely. So, I think the notion coming from, Barry Diller downwards is there's a certain enjoyment that we're internal competitors also. And the internal competitiveness, for example, in Europe between Hotels.com and Expedia, we really, try to outsmart each other, but actually then we share what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we're still friends after work. And that has kept us on our toes. That helps.
It shows. Ladies and gentlemen, Andreas Now, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Good job. Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah.